Princess Vera was once the most powerful woman in the Zelari Dominion. She wore silver armor that shimmered like starlight, and her voice could silence a war council with one word. But now, she sat motionless on a floating throne, unable to move anything below her neck. Her golden eyes were still sharp, but they carried pain of betrayal, loss, and the weight of an empire crumbling around her. She had been betrayed by her own brother a year ago, during what should have been a peaceful meeting. He struck first. Poisoned food, silent killers, explosions in the palace halls. Vera barely survived. Her body was broken, her army scattered. The people who once cheered for her now whispered her name in fear and doubt. Now, the Zelari Council met not to protect her, but to decide what to do with her. "She cannot rule," said High Minister Tovak, his voice cold. "She cannot even walk." "She is still our queen," replied Commander Kalen, her loyal bodyguard. His voice was calm, but behind it burned fire. "She is still alive, but for how long?" asked another counselor. "You need an heir. Without one, the Dominion will fall into chaos." Vera remained silent, her mind racing. She knew what they wanted. She knew what they feared. Without an heir, the line of succession would pass to her traitorous brother, or worse. Two distant cousins with no claim to true power. There was only one chance left: the human protocol. She said softly. The room went quiet. Tovak frowned. "That's just a myth. A dirty story told to scare young nobles." "Oh," Vera said, her voice steady. "It's real. We must use it." The human protocol was a secret plan created centuries ago when the Zelari first studied Earth. They found something strange. Human DNA was more compatible with alien species than any other known race. Some believed it was a gift from a lost ancient civilization. Others called it a curse. But if the stories were true, then a human could give her an heir. The next day, a shuttle arrived at the palace docks. It brought a single prisoner captain, Elias Vance. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and covered in scars. His clothes were torn, his hands chained, but his eyes were full of fire. He had fought pirates, smuggled tech across borders, and survived battles where others died. Now he was here not as a hero, but as a captured man with nothing left. He looked up at the palace walls and muttered, "Well, this is new." He was dragged into the throne room and thrown to his knees before Princess Vera. "Human, she," said her voice echoing through the chamber. "You are Captain Elias Vance?" Elias grinned despite the bruises on his face. "Last time I checked, yeah. You are a criminal, a smuggler, a threat to peace. And yet here I am," he said, looking around. "Not dead. So, what's the deal?" Vera stared at him. He was different from the reports. Stronger, smarter, more dangerous. Then she spoke the words that made everyone gasp. "Will you impregnate me, human?" For the first time in years, Elias Vance didn't know what to say. Silence filled the room. "What?" he finally managed. "I need an heir," Vera said calmly. "Zelari science has failed. My bloodline may end with me, but there is a chance, small but real, that your genetic code can complete what mine cannot." Elias blinked. "So, you want me to father a child," she said. "A child that will inherit the throne of the Zelari Dominion." Elias laughed, shaking his head. "Lady, I'm flattered, really. But I don't think that's how this works." "It can work," said Kalen, stepping forward. "With science, with care, with purpose." Elias looked at them both. One was a broken princess clinging to hope. The other, a warrior ready to fight for her, and him, just a man who never asked. To be part of something this big, still, something about her courage hit him. She wasn't asking for love. She wasn't offering freedom. She was offering a duty, one that could change the fate of two worlds. He stood straighter. "So let me get this straight," he said. "If I say yes, I live. If I say no, you die," Tovak said coldly. Elias turned back to Vera. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "Will you help me save my people?" she asked. Elias took a deep breath, then he smiled. "Why not? I've done weirder things for less pay. Elias Vance was not a man who liked rules. He had spent most of his life flying through space, dodging patrols and making deals with people who would just as soon shoot him as shake his hand. So when they told him he could no longer wear his own clothes, couldn't walk outside without permission, and had to learn how to eat like royalty, he almost laughed out loud, almost. Instead, he nodded, smiled, and followed the tall Zelari tutor into a room filled with books, holodisplays, and silence so thick it felt heavy. "You are now part of the royal court," said the tutor, a thin, sharp-eyed woman named Lyra. "You will speak properly. You will dress properly. You will act like a man who understands the importance of this task." Elias raised an eyebrow. "So basically I'm getting turned into a fancy suit with muscles." Lyra didn't smile. "You are here to give the princess an heir. But if you cannot understand our ways, that child will have no place in our world." He sighed and sat down. All right, let's start with the basics. How do you say "I don't care" in your language?" Ain't. Gave him a long look. "You don't have a word for that." Over the next few weeks, Elias learned more than he ever wanted to know about Zelari history, politics, and table manners. He practiced speaking their formal language until his tongue hurt. He memorized the names of dead kings and queens, old wars, and laws that made little sense even to the people who lived by them. But not everything was boring. There were moments small, ones that reminded him he wasn't just some lab rat in a palace, like when Vera called him to her chambers. Late one night, she sat in her floating chair, watching the stars move slowly across the sky outside her window. Her voice was soft when she spoke. "You're trying harder than I expected," she said. Elias leaned against the wall. "Well, I figure if I'm going to be stuck in a castle full of aliens, I might as well try to make it less boring." She looked at him, curious. "Do you hate us?" He shook his head. "Nah, just don't know you yet." That surprised her. She studied him for a moment before asking, "Tell me something about Earth." Elias smiled. "What do you want to know?" "Anything," he thought for a second. Then he began to talk not about war or death or destruction, but about music, food, stories. He told her about oceans that stretched forever, skies that changed color with the seasons, and cities that never slept. He told her about humans, and for the first time since the betrayal, Vera smiled. Not a queen, not a broken ruler, just a woman, listening to a man from another world. Days passed, weeks, the lessons continued. But something had changed. Elias started to see the palace not as a prison, but as a battlefield of a different kind. He watched how the counselors moved and spoke. He listened to the whispers behind closed doors. He noticed which servants knew too much, and which guards stayed silent when they should have spoken. And he learned about Varen, just the queen, but the girl who once dreamed of exploring. The stars, who loved human songs even though she barely understood the words. One day, they tried the first artificial insemination. It failed, then again and again. Each time, scientists frowned, adjusted the formulas, ran new tests. Each time the result was the same. The genetic compatibility existed in theory, but not in practice, until one scientist whispered what everyone else was afraid to say: it may not work unless there is natural bonding. Ra didn't flinch. "You mean love?" "No," the scientist replied carefully. "Emotional connection, mutual trust. A bond between two beings willing to create life together." Silence fell over the room. Elias looked at Vera. She looked back at him. Neither of them said anything. Later that night, Kaelin stood beside her throne. "She has chosen a hard path," he said quietly. Elias crossed his arms. "Tell me about it." Kaelin studied him. "You think this is just duty to you?" But she sees more. Sees what? A chance for what? To change everything. Elias didn't answer right away. He looked toward the sky beyond the palace walls somewhere. Out there, his ship was probably scrap, his crew gone, his freedom lost. And yet, he had been given a chance, not just to live, but to matter. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it was more than enough. Elias didn't know what to expect when he was called to Vera's private chamber that night. It wasn't the first time, but something felt different. The guard stood farther. Away, the lights were dimmer. Letta, seated in her floating chair, looked more like a woman than a queen. She gestured for him to sit across from her. "I want you to understand me," she said simply. Elias raised an eyebrow. "That's a big request." "I know," she replied. "But I need you to try." He leaned back and crossed his arms. "All right then. Where do we start?" Vera looked out the window at the stars. Her voice was calm, but there was something soft beneath it. "When I was a child, my father told me that power is not in strength or fear," she began. "It is in choice. A ruler must choose who to trust, who to fight, and who to love even if they cannot show it." Elias listened quietly. "I have made many choices," she continued. "Some good, some terrible, but this one," she turned to face him fully. "This one will shape the future of my people." "You mean the baby?" Elias said. "Yes," she nodded. "But also us." There was silence between them. Not awkward, not forced, just quiet finally. Elias spoke. "You don't owe me anything, you know. Could have picked some fancy scientist or noble guy. Someone who already knows how to bow without falling over. I chose you because you are not like them," Vera said. "You are free. You are strong. And even now, after everything, you still speak your mind." Elias smiled slightly. "Guess I never learned when to shut up." Over the next few weeks, something changed. They talked more. About small things. About Earth. About Zellery legends. About music, food, dreams, and fears. Sometimes they argued. Sometimes they laughed. And slowly, bit by bit, walls began to fall. Kaylin noticed it first. "She listens to you differently," told Elias one day. "Like your words matter." "She listens to everyone." Elias shrugged. "No," Kaylin said. "She hears you." And then came the night. Everything shifted. Elias was walking through the palace, guarding a rare moment of freedom, when he found Vera sitting under a glowing tree. It was late, and most of the staff had gone to sleep. He sat beside her. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "I rarely do," she admitted. "It's too much on my mind." He studied her for a moment. "You okay?" "Ah." She didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, "I miss being able to feel the wind on my skin." Elias frowned. "What if you could?" She gave him a look. "Forget what I am." "No," he said. "I remember. That's why I think it's time we did something." "About it? What do you mean?" He stood and held out his hand. "Come with me." She stared at it like it was a trick. "I can't walk," she reminded him. "No," Elias said. "But I can carry you?" For the first time since the betrayal, Vera hesitated. Then slowly, she placed her hand in his. Elias lifted her gently and carried her through the garden, past the fountain, toward the edge of the palace where the sky opened wide above them. They stood together, looking at the stars, and for just a moment, Vera wasn't a broken queen. She was a woman, standing beside a man who saw her not as a symbol, not as a ruler, but as someone worth knowing. That night, something deep inside her stirred hope. But not all eyes were kind. In the shadows of the palace, enemies watched. Minister Tovak sat in a dark room, speaking in hushed tones to others who feared what was happening. "This bond weakens her," he growled. "She is becoming too attached to the human, and if the child is born," another asked, "then we will see what happens." "When bloodlines mix," Tovak said coldly, "we cannot allow this union to continue." Plans were made, secrets were whispered, and danger began to move. But none of that mattered yet, because in that quiet moment, under the stars, Elias and Vera shared something no one else could take: trust, connection, a beginning, and somewhere far away, the universe seemed to pause and listen. News spread fast in the Zellery Dominion. Even behind palace walls, secrets had wings, and this one was bigger than most. The queen was pregnant, not just with any child, but with a hybrid, half-human, half-Zellery. To some, it was hope. To others, it was heresy. Elias Vance stood beside Vera as the court gathered for an emergency session. Ministers, generals, noble families all watched them like predators circling prey. "This is unacceptable," Minister Tovak declared, his voice sharp. A human has no place in our royal bloodline. His child will be weak, unfit to rule. Elias stepped forward. You're right, I'm not Zelari. But I've fought battles you wouldn't last 5 minutes in. I've survived things that would break your spine. And if my kid comes from that, then yeah, they'll be strong enough to lead. Tovak sneered. You speak like a warrior, but you are nothing more than a prisoner. Vera raised her hand. Silence fell. I do not need your approval, she said coldly. I am your queen, and this child will inherit my throne. Some nodded. Others looked away. The meeting ended without bloodshed, but not all battles are fought with swords. That night, Elias found Kalen waiting outside Vera's chambers. We have a problem, the bodyguard said. Elias crossed his arms. What now? Rebel. Lords, they're gathering forces on the outer planets. They say the birth of your child is a threat to the Dominion. Elias sighed. So we're at war now? Kalen nodded. Looks like it. The next morning, Elias was given new clothes, not fancy ones. Battle gear. You want me to fight? I asked. No, Vera said. I want you to lead. Lead what? The people? She answered.
They don't know you yet, but they know of you. A human who stood beside their queen.
Who defied tradition, brought life where there was only death. Elias shook his head. Lady, I'm a smuggler, not a hero. You are whatever you choose to be, she told him. And right now, we need someone who can unite hearts, not just armies. So he went. First to the city markets, where traders whispered about the unborn child. Then to the training grounds, where young warriors trained with blades and shields. Finally, to the great hall, where thousands gathered under banners of old houses. He stood before them, not as a king, not as a soldier, as a man. I didn't come here to take anything, he began. I came here because someone believed I could give something back. He paused, letting the words settle. My people were never rulers. We were survivors. We built cities out of dust. We flew into space when we barely understood gravity. We fought each other, yes, but we also learned how to forgive, how to build, how to rise. He looked around. So now I ask you, do you fear this child? Or do you believe in what it could become? Silence. Then slowly, one by one, the crowd began to clap, then cheer, then chant. Long live the heir. Long live the heir. Back in the palace, Vera heard the sound echo through the halls. She smiled. For the first time in a long time, she felt the wind of change, but not everyone welcomed it. Later that night, a message arrived, a warning. One of Vera's own guards had turned traitor. He had sold information to the rebels. And worse, he had access to the queen's chambers. Elias and Kalon moved fast. They reached her room just as the assassin struck. A blade flashed. Kalon took the blow. He fell hard, blood staining the floor. Elias grabbed the attacker and slammed. Him against the wall? Who sent you? He growled. The assassin spat at him. Your kind doesn't belong here. Elias punched him once, hard. Then he dropped him and ran to Kalon. Vera sat frozen in her chair. It was wide. Stay with us, Elias begged. Kalon coughed, then managed a weak smile. Tell the queen. She made the right choice. His eyes. Clothes gone. Gone, Elias turned to Vera. She looked broken again, but then, slowly, she lifted her chin. They think they can scare us, she said softly. They think we will fall. Elias stood beside her. They don't know us, he said. No. She agreed. They don't. Outside, the stars still shined, and somewhere inside the queen's heart, a new fire lit. Hope, strength, and a promise. This time, they wouldn't just survive. They would win. The palace was silent. But the galaxy was not. News of Kellen's death spread like wildfire. Some mourned him as a hero. Others whispered that he died for a mistake a human in royal affairs. A hybrid heir, a broken queen who refused to fall. But Vera did not fall. She stood taller than ever. Elias stood beside her, his fists still clenched from grief. But there was no time for mourning. Not yet. The High Council had made their decision to prove the worth of the unborn child. And the right of the human bloodline Elias would undergo the trial of ascension, a test only completed by warriors. Kings and legends, he would have to fight, think, and survive, or die trying. The trial began at dawn. Thousands gathered in the great arena beneath the palace dome. The air buzzed with tension. Zalari lords watched from high seats. Commoners filled every corner. Even prisoners were allowed to witness. They wanted to see if the human could stand tall, or if he would break like so many before him. First came the test of strength. Elias faced a pair of armored champions, each trained since birth for war. They swung heavy blades. He dodged, countered, and used speed over power. One fell with a cracked knee, the other with a broken jaw. He won, then came the test of wisdom. Old scholars asked impossible questions, riddles that confused even generals. Elias didn't know all the answers, but he knew how to listen, how to think, and when to ask for help. He passed. Finally came the test of sacrifice. A prisoner was brought forward. He accused of stealing food. To feed his starving children, the council gave Elias a choice: punish him, kill him, or take his place. Elias looked at the man, at his trembling hands, at the fear in his eyes. Without hesitation, he stepped forward. "I'll take his place," he said. Gasps echoed through the arena. Rhee watched from above, her heart pounding. The guards raised their whips. One strike, then another. Elias didn't cry out. He stood tall. Blood ran down his back, but he did not fall. And when it was over, he turned to the crowd. "This is strength," he said, voice loud and clear. "Not just fighting, not just winning, but standing up for those who can't." Silence, then slowly, someone clapped. Then more, then thousands. Even some of the lords bowed their heads. The trial was over. Elias had passed. But before the results could be announced, an alarm rang through the palace. The rebels had arrived. Outside, the city walls, ships darkened the sky. The rebel lords had launched a full attack. Their goal? Destroy the palace. Kill the queen. End the line before the hybrid heir could live? Elias barely had time to clean his wounds before he grabbed a weapon. "We need to get Vera to safety," he told the remaining guards. "No," Vera said. "We need to fight." "You're not walking," Elias reminded her. "And you are not alone," she replied. Together they moved to the command center. From there, Vera sent messages across the Dominion. To all loyal forces, she spoke into the comms. "We are under attack. This is not just a battle for my life. It is a battle for our future. Stand with us. Fight for what we believe in." Across the planet, soldiers, pilots, and civilians responded. Elias led the defense at the outer gates, using traps, fire, and clever plans. He held off wave after wave of attackers. Meanwhile, Vera guided strategy from her throne, her mind sharp and fearless. And then came the worst moment. A blast rocked the palace. Smoke filled the halls. When the dust cleared, Leortha, unborn child, was missing. Taken by whom? No one knew. But the message left behind was clear. The hybrid will never rule. Leah stared at the screen showing the stolen crib. His daughter gone. He dropped to his knees. Vera reached for his hand. "She is alive," she said softly, "and we will find her." Elias looked up, pain in his eyes. Then he stood. "Yes," he whispered. "We will." Because this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about family, about hope, about the future, and they weren't going to let anyone take it. Elias Vance didn't sleep. He paced through the broken halls of the palace, his eyes red, his body bruised, but his mind sharp. Leora was gone, his daughter, Vera's heir, the future of the Zalari Dominion. And he wasn't going to stop until she was back in their arms. Vera sat beside him, silent for a long time. Then she spoke. "We will find her," she said. Elias looked at her. "How?" She turned her head slowly, her golden eyes meeting his. "Because we are not the only ones who know what she is." Elias frowned. What do you mean? Vera took a deep breath. There were other experiments. Before you, other humans, other children. Elias stared at her. You've never told me that. I didn't want to risk them being found, she admitted. But now, they may be our only chance. She signaled one of her remaining guards, who brought up an old data screen. Lines of text scrolled across. It names locations. Hidden labs scattered across the galaxy. Elias read one name and stopped. Project Sanctuary. He whispered. Ver nodded. A secret colony built to protect hybrid children like Leora. If the rebels don't know about it, she might still be safe. Elias stood. Then we go there. They left within the hour. Elias, Vera, and a small team of loyal soldiers boarded a fast shuttle and jumped into hyperspace. Behind them, the war raged on. But their mission was no longer about politics or power. It was about family as they traveled. Elias trained. He learned how to fight in zero gravity, how to track enemies through ruins, how to survive where no law existed. And every night, he thought of Lore. Was she scared? Was she hungry? Did she even remember them? Vera watched him closely. You're not just a soldier, she told him one night. You're becoming something more. Elias didn't answer right away. I'm just trying to be a father, he said finally. That, she said softly, is the greatest strength of all. After days of travel, they reached the edge of known space. There, hidden behind a dead star, was Project Sanctuary. It looked like nothing more than a floating station at first. But as they docked, truth became clear. This was no lab. It was a home. Children ran through the halls, some clearly human, others with Zellery features. Some had glowing eyes. Others could hear thoughts before they were spoken. Elias stepped. Inside, stunned, one of the caretakers, a woman named Dr. Mira Salo, approached them. We heard what happened, she said. We've been waiting for you. Elias looked around. These kids, they're all hybrids, she confirmed. Like Leora, Elias felt something rise in his chest. Hope, is she here? He asked. Dr. Sol nodded. Yes, she arrived 2 days ago, scared but unharmed. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, then he moved. Through corridors, past classrooms, toward a small room filled with light. And there, sitting on a bed wrapped in a warm blanket, was his daughter Laura. She looked up, her eyes half human, half Solari widened. Daddy. Elias dropped to his knees. Yes, sweetheart, he whispered. It's me. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. And for the first time since the attack, he breathed again. Later that night, Elias sat with Vera outside the sleeping quarters. She's safe, he said. For now, Vera replied. He looked at her. What do you mean? She pointed toward the window where stars stretched endlessly into darkness. There are more out there, she said. More hybrids. More children born from fear, from hope, from love. You think they're in danger? 2, they are the future, she said. And some will try to destroy the future before it begins. Elias looked back at the sleeping children. Then he stood. Then we'll protect them, he said. All of them. Vera studied him. Really believe that, don't you? Elias smiled. Yeah, I do. She looked at him for a long time. Then she said, Then maybe you're not just a father. Who am I then? A leader? Elias laughed quietly. Didn't plan for that when I woke up this morning.
Oh.
Vera agreed. But sometimes, fate chooses us. He looked out at the stars again, and somewhere deep inside, he knew. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Even after Leora was found. Even after the rebels were pushed back, the galaxy still whispered. Some feared the rise of hybrids. Others saw them as a threat to tradition. But many, especially those who had suffered under old rulers, saw something else, hope. And so, Vera called for a new kind of meeting, not in the cold halls of war, but in the light of unity. A great council was held on Zellery Prime. Aliens from across the Dominion gathered. Leaders, scientists, warriors, and common people. They came not to argue, not to fight, but to witness history. On the central platform stood 3 figures. Princess Vera, once broken, now strong, Captain Elias Vance. Once a prisoner, now a protector. And between them, holding both their hands, Leora, the first hybrid heir. Vera stepped forward and raised her voice. "My people," she began, "we have lived through pain. We have seen betrayal, war, and loss. But we have also seen courage, strength, and love." She looked down at Leora. "This child is not a mistake. She is not a danger. She is the future." Elias stood beside her, arms crossed, face calm. Then he spoke. "I didn't come here to rule," he said. "I came here because someone believed I could give something back. And maybe that's all any of us are trying to do, give something better to the next generation." He looked around the crowd. "So if you're scared of what Leora is, I get it. Change can be scary. But ask yourself, what if she's not the end of something old, but the start of something new?" Silence followed. Then slowly, someone clapped. Another joined. Then another. Soon, the whole hall echoed with applause. It wasn't full agreement, not yet. But it was a beginning, and beginnings mattered. Weeks passed, peace talks continued. Some lords refused to accept the new order. Few tried to leave the Dominion. Others tried to take power by force and failed. Because now there were two protectors of the throne. Not just a queen, but a king. Elias Vance, once a smuggler, was named Corrigant. Alongside Vera, not just as a guardian, not just as a father, but as an equal. And then came the greatest surprise of all. Vera stood. She walked her body, long paralyzed, moved again thanks to human AI technology and Zellery medicine working together. She stepped onto the palace balcony, looking out over. Her people. Elias stood beside her. "Didn't think I'd see that," he said quietly. "I didn't think I'd feel the wind again," she replied. Below, the people cheered. Children ran through the streets, laughing. Old enemies shook hands, and somewhere in the sky, stars burned like promises. Years passed. Project Sanctuary grew into a full colony. Children like Leora trained, learned, and played side by side human, Zalari, and others. They spoke two languages, sang songs from Earth, built machines that no single species could create alone. They were not one race, they were many. Together, Lager grew up among them. Sometimes she played with dolls. Sometimes she flew ships. And sometimes she watched her parents from afar. She never asked why they were different, because, to her, being different was normal. Being together was everything. One day, Elias stood on the edge of the colony, looking out at the stars. Yera joined him. "You thinking about leaving?" she asked. He smiled. "Just remembering where I came from." She leaned against the railing. "You've changed more than just me," she said. "You've changed the galaxy." Elias chuckled. "Didn't plan for that either." "No," she agreed. "But sometimes the best things happen when we stop planning and start believing." He looked at her, then at the stars, then at the world behind him. A world built not on fear, not on conquest, but on hope and love. He turned to her. "We did good, huh?" Vera smiled. "We did better than that. Made a future."